I never thought I'd be the guy who had to write a post like this. Not me, not in a million years. But here I am, sitting at my desk, staring at my phone, feeling an overwhelming mix of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. My name is Jake, and I was married to Laura for almost 7 years. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but lately I noticed something was off. It started small. Laura, who always had a preference for upbeat pop music, suddenly switched her ringtone to this random, edgy rock song, my ringtone. At first, I thought it was just a weird coincidence. I shrugged it off, assuming she liked the sound. But as the days passed, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was not right. It was like a shadow lurking in the back of my mind, whispering that I needed to pay attention. There were other signs, too. Laura began spending more time at the gym. "I'm just trying to get fit," she'd say with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It wasn't just her sudden obsession with fitness. It was the little things. Her phone was always face down on the table, her texts seemed to be filled with emojis, and she was more secretive than usual. I'd catch her glancing at her phone, biting her lip, then hurriedly putting it away when I walked into the room. The turning point came one Saturday afternoon when I decided to surprise her with lunch. I thought it would be a nice gesture to break up her routine, to show her that I cared. But as I pulled into our driveway, my heart sank. There it was, her car parked alongside a strange sedan I didn't recognize. I didn't think much about it at first. Maybe it was a friend of hers. But when I walked inside, the atmosphere was different. The music was blaring, the living room cluttered with workout gear, and there was an undeniable tension in the air. And then I heard it, the ringtone again. This time it was louder, coming from her phone. I followed the sound into the bedroom where I found her phone sitting on the bedside table. The screen lit up and my heart raced when I saw the name, Mike. Panic washed over me and I felt my stomach drop. Mike, who the hell was Mike? I froze, my hands shaking, unable to process what I was seeing. I picked up the phone, staring at the screen, feeling a mix of dread and anger bubbling inside me. Before I could think, I swiped the screen to answer it, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who is this?" A deep male voice responded and my heart shattered. "Hey babe, I was just thinking about you." In that moment, I felt the world tilt off its axis. I dropped the phone as if it had burned my hand, the reality of the situation crashing down on me like a wave of icy water. Laura was cheating on me. When she walked in moments later, her expression shifted from surprise to guilt in an instant. I stood there, fists clenched at my sides, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. How could she do this to me? To us? I wanted to scream, but I was too stunned to articulate my feelings. "Jake, I can explain," she stammered, backpedaling towards the door as if trying to escape. But there was nowhere to run. I couldn't let her brush this off with some flimsy excuse. I needed answers. "Explain what, Laura? Is this Mike the reason you've been acting so weird? Is this why you changed your ringtone?" I shot back, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. The anger simmered just below the surface. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, searching for words that didn't exist. "It's not what you think." She finally blurted out, and I could see the desperation in her eyes, but I wasn't buying it. I needed to hear her confession, the truth that lay behind all her lies and evasions. Laura's face paled as she realized I wasn't going to let this slide. For a moment she looked vulnerable, like a deer caught in headlights. I could tell she was trying to think of something, anything, that would make this mess go away, and that infuriated me more. "Jake, please, it's not what you think," she repeated, her voice shaky. "Mike is just a friend from the gym. We've been working out together. That's all." "Right," I snapped, incredulity dripping from my words. "So, he just happens to call you babe, does he? And you just happen to change your ringtone to match mine? Sounds perfectly normal to me." The anger in my voice seemed to ignite something in her. Her demeanor shifted from fear to irritation. "You're being ridiculous. You're so paranoid. I'm just trying to better myself. It's not my fault you're not supportive of my fitness goals." "Supportive? Laura, this isn't about your fitness goals. You're cheating on me." I shouted, frustration flooding through me. "Stop trying to deflect. I'm not the one who has been lying here." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment I saw the bitchy side of her that I'd tried to ignore for years. "You think I'm cheating because I'm getting fit? Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of your stupid video games, I wouldn't need to seek attention elsewhere." Those words cut deeper than I expected. I had been caught up in my routine, sure, but I never thought she would use that as an excuse to betray me. I felt the heat of betrayal envelop me, and for a brief moment I was lost in the hurt. "Laura, this isn't about me. This is about you lying and sneaking around," I shot back, my voice shaking slightly as I felt the sting of unshed tears. "You're breaking my heart and you're throwing this back on me. How can you even do that?" She opened her mouth, probably to fire back another excuse, but I didn't want to hear it. I couldn't take her lies any longer. "You need to tell me the truth, or I swear I will find out myself. Who is Mike?" The silence that followed was deafening. Laura stared at me, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. I could see her mind racing, weighing her options. Finally, she dropped her gaze, staring at the floor like it held the answers to all my questions. "Okay, fine, I met him a few months ago. He's just someone I clicked with, okay? I didn't mean for it to happen, but things just progressed." Her voice was barely a whisper, filled with regret, but that didn't change the fact that the knife had already plunged deep into my chest. "Progressed? Is that what you call it? You cheated on me, Laura. You knew what you were doing, you just did." "Care?" The anger in my voice felt righteous, but it was laced with a deep sadness. Her lip quivered as she tried to hold back tears. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could stop. I thought it was just a phase." She was scrambling, trying to justify her actions, but nothing could excuse the betrayal. I took a step back, the weight of it all crashing down on me like a ton of bricks. "A phase? You're telling me that having sex with someone else is just a phase?" She shook her head, her voice rising with desperation. "No, it's not like that. I made a mistake, Jake. I was lonely. You weren't around and things just happened." The honesty in her response hit me hard. I had been so wrapped up in my routine, in my own world, that I didn't notice the cracks forming in our marriage. It hurt to realize how I had contributed to this situation, but that didn't mean I would excuse her actions. "Lonely. So instead of talking to me, you decided to sleep with someone else. That's your solution." I could feel the betrayal eating away at me like a disease. "I didn't know how to talk to you," she exclaimed, her frustration boiling over. "You've been so distant, I thought you wouldn't care. I thought I could handle it on my own, but I could." We spent the next few minutes in a heated argument, a whirlwind of accusations, justifications, and raw emotions. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring down into an abyss of uncertainty. I had trusted her, loved her, and now all I felt was a sickening blend of anger and heartbreak. Eventually, she fell silent, tears streaming down her face. I could see the reality of the situation starting to settle in for her. The weight of her actions was finally catching up. I felt no satisfaction in seeing her upset. Instead, it only deepened my sorrow. "You need to leave," I said finally, my voice firm. "I couldn't have her here, not like this. I need time to think. I can't deal with this right now." Her eyes widened in shock. "Jake, please don't do this. We can fix this. I can make it up to you." But I was already shutting down. "No, Laura, you've made your choice. It's time for you to go." And just like that, she was gone. Just like that, so was my marriage. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me alone in a silence that felt deafening. I slumped onto the couch, my heart heavy and my thoughts racing. The reality of the betrayal washed over me like a cold wave, leaving me feeling utterly lost and hollow. I didn't know what the next steps would be. I just knew that everything had changed in an instant, and I wasn't sure how I was going to cope with the aftermath. The days following Laura's departure were a blur of confusion and heartache. I went through the motions of my daily life, but everything felt muted, like I was walking through a fog. Friends and family reached out, concerned about my well-being, but I couldn't muster the energy to engage. How could I explain that the woman I had loved, my partner, my confidant, had betrayed me so severely? No one could truly understand the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me: anger, sadness, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. The first week was the hardest. I found myself lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment leading up to that fateful confrontation. How could I have been so blind? The signs had been there, but I had ignored them, too caught up in my own life to notice the cracks forming in our relationship. I felt like a fool, and I hated myself for it. One night, as I was scrolling through my phone, I came across a message from Laura that had somehow slipped through my mind. It was a text sent just a few days before everything fell apart, asking if I could come home early because she had a surprise for me. The irony twisted my gut. I had been so excited, thinking she wanted to plan something special for us. Little did I know she was already involved with someone else, lying right to my face. I couldn't help but feel nauseous at the thought. Eventually, I decided to take a break from the house. It felt suffocating, a constant reminder of what I had lost. I needed to clear my head to find some semblance of peace. I drove to the local park, hoping the fresh air would help me think. As I walked along the path, I passed couples laughing and enjoying each other's company. At that moment, jealousy clawed at my insides. They had what I once had, and it felt like a cruel twist of fate. I sat on a bench, watching the sun dip below the horizon, trying to collect my thoughts. It was during this quiet moment that a plan started to form in my mind. I realized that I couldn't let this betrayal define me. I wouldn't wallow in self-pity forever. If Laura had moved on, then maybe it was time for me to do the same, but I wanted to do it on my terms. I wanted revenge. I hadn't fully processed the emotional side of my decision to seek revenge. Was it right? Maybe not. But as I thought about the betrayal, I felt an undeniable anger rise within me. I had been blindsided, and I wanted her to feel the sting of her choices, even if it meant causing her a little pain in return. The first step was to gather evidence. I needed to know if this affair was still ongoing, and I couldn't just let it go. I decided to do some digging. I used social media to my advantage, searching for any signs of Laura and this Mike. It didn't take long before I found a picture on Instagram, a snapshot of them together at a bar, wrapped around each other, laughing as if they were the only two people in the world. The image sent a fresh wave of anger coursing through me. I felt the claws of betrayal grip my heart again, squeezing tighter. I took a screenshot and saved it, knowing I could use it later. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my power and showing her that I wouldn't be the one left broken. As the days passed, I immersed myself in planning. I started working out at the gym, partly to distract myself, but mostly to get in shape and feel confident again. It felt good to reclaim a piece of my life. I would not let her take my self-worth along with my heart. I began to make new connections, meeting new people, and even went out for drinks with some friends. Slowly but surely, I was starting to feel like myself again. But the revenge plan was brewing in the background. I wanted to confront Laura one last time to show her the impact of her actions. I decided I wouldn't just tell her about the evidence I had. I wanted her to see it firsthand. I wanted to catch her off guard, to catch her in her web of lies. It was then I came up with the idea to invite her to meet up, under the pretense of wanting to talk about our relationship. I could already picture her face, the look of surprise when I dropped the bombshell on her. I sent her a text, carefully crafting my words to keep it casual. "Hey Laura, I'd like to talk. Can we meet up?" I hit send, my heart racing. I knew this was the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment I took control back. When Laura agreed to meet, I felt a sense of power surge within me. I spent the night before the meeting rehearsing what I would say, picturing her reaction. Would she try to deny it? Would she give me another excuse? No matter what, I was ready for her. The day finally arrived, and as I approached the cafe where we agreed to meet, I felt a mixture of nerves and anticipation. I'd been through so much, and now I was standing on the precipice of reclaiming my life. I just hoped this confrontation would give me the closure I so desperately needed. When I walked in, she was already sitting at a table, fiddling with her phone. She looked up, her expression shifting from curiosity to an almost guarded demeanor. The moment she saw me, I noticed a flicker of fear in her eyes, and it fueled my determination further. I could sense that she knew I wasn't there for a friendly chat. As I sat down across from her, I took a deep breath. It was time to lay it all on the table. I was ready to expose the truth, and I was going to make sure she never forgot the consequences of her actions. The emotional storm we were about to unleash would change everything. I sat across the table from Laura, my heart pounding fiercely in my chest. She looked at me with a mixture of uncertainty and apprehension, the weight of our past hanging heavy in the air. I could see that. She was trying to gauge my mood, likely wondering what I wanted to say, but I wasn't here to dance around the truth any longer. "Thanks for meeting me," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "I thought we needed to talk about everything that happened." She nodded, but I could see her mind racing. "Yeah, I know things have been complicated," she replied, her voice faltering slightly. "I really just want to explain myself." "Explain yourself," I echoed, trying to keep the disbelief out of my tone. "You think there's any excuse for what you did, for cheating on me?" Her eyes flashed with defiance, but there was a hint of guilt that she couldn't hide. "Jake, I know I messed up. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was confused and you were so distant." I interrupted her, no longer willing to hear her flimsy excuses. "You were confused, so you thought it would be a good idea to sleep with my friend, to betray the person who loved you." I leaned in closer, my voice low but firm. "Is that really the best you could come up with?" She dropped her gaze, unable to meet my eyes. "I didn't think of it that way. I felt neglected." "Neglected?" I scoffed, my anger bubbling to the surface again. "You didn't communicate at all. You chose to go behind my back instead of talking to me about how you felt. And for what? For some guy at the gym." The tension between us crackled, and I could feel the air thickening with unspoken words. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, tapping the screen to bring up the photo I had saved. "You know, I saw this the other day. It's funny how this friend of yours seems to have a different definition of friendship." I slid the phone across the table, watching as her eyes widened with shock. I could see her processing the image of her and Mike, arms wrapped around each other, smiles plastered on their faces. The defensiveness melted away, replaced by panic as she realized the evidence was irrefutable. "Jake, I can explain." She stammered, but I cut her off again. "No, Laura, you've had your chances to explain. This is you getting caught red-handed. I just want to know why you thought you could get away with it." She swallowed hard, her voice trembling as she tried to formulate a response. "I don't know. I thought it was just a fling. I thought I could still come back to you. I thought you wouldn't find out." "Of course I would find out. You think I'm that oblivious? That I wouldn't notice you changing, acting differently? You lied to me. You deceitfully played both sides." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "And now you want me to feel sorry for you?" "I never wanted to hurt you, Jake. I loved you," she blurted out, her eyes glistening with tears. I messed up. Love has nothing to do with it." I shot back, my voice rising. "You don't betray someone you love. You talk to them, you figure it out. But instead, you chose to sneak around, and I deserve better than that." The silence that followed was thick, heavy with the weight of unspoken pain. I could see the realization dawning on her. That this was it. There was no defense left, no justification she could pull out of her hat that would change the reality of what she had done. "Jake, please," she whispered, tears now streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make it right. I'll end things with Mike. Just give me another chance." I shook my head slowly, my heart aching for the person I once thought I knew. "You think I can just forget this? That I can magically erase the hurt you caused? You shattered my trust, Laura. Can't just go back to how things were." "But what if we worked on it?" she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I can change. We can go to therapy. I can show you I'm committed." The desperation in her voice was palpable, but it only fueled my resolve. "You had your chance to be committed, and you threw it away. You made your choice, and now you're trying to put the pieces back together when it's too late." The look on her face was one of devastation, and for a moment I felt a pang of regret. I didn't want to see her hurt, but the truth was I was hurting too. I had invested years into this relationship, and now it felt like it had all been for nothing. "I can't do this anymore, Laura," I said firmly. "I can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not. You need to leave. I need to figure out how to move on from this." Her face crumpled as she realized that there was no way out. "Jake, please." "No," I interrupted, my voice firm. "You made your choice. You need to face the consequences of your actions. This is goodbye." I stood up, feeling a surge of strength as I looked down at her, the tears still cascading down her cheeks. It was painful to see her like this, but I couldn't let it consume me any longer. I turned and walked out of that cafe, leaving behind the memories of what we once had. As I stepped outside into the cool air, a sense of liberation washed over me. I had taken control of my life again, and while the road ahead seemed uncertain, I knew that I had made the right decision. It was to focus on healing and rediscovering who I was without her. The emotional impact of this confrontation was immense, but I was beginning to accept that I could move forward. I had felt the heartache, the anger, and the betrayal, but now I was also feeling a sense of hope, a hope that perhaps one day I would be able to trust again, to love again. But it would take time, and I was finally ready to give myself that time. I took a deep breath, trying to process everything that had just happened. It was time to reclaim my life, to find my way back to happiness. And I would do it for me. The days following my confrontation with Laura were a whirlwind of emotions, but as time went on, I began to find my footing again. I dived headfirst into my work in the gym, using the energy from my heartbreak to fuel my determination to rebuild my life. I started sharing more time with friends who had reached out during my darkest moments. They were supportive and encouraging, reminding me that I was more than just the sum of my relationship with Laura. I spent weekends hiking, going out for beers, and even trying a few new restaurants. It felt good to be surrounded by people who cared, to laugh and enjoy life without the shadow of betrayal looming over me. One evening, I found myself at a local bar with a couple of close friends. As we sat at the bar, I noticed a woman sitting across the room. She had a warm smile and an infectious laugh that drew me in. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of attraction. Her presence was magnetic, and for the first time since the breakup, I felt a spark of interest. My friends noticed my gaze and nudged me playfully. "Go talk to her, man," one of them urged. I hesitated, the fear of getting hurt again creeping back into my mind. But this wasn't about Laura. This was a chance to explore new possibilities, to reclaim my confidence. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the challenge, and walked over to her. "Hi, I couldn't help but notice you from across the room. I'm Jake," I said, trying to sound casual despite the butterflies in my stomach. She looked up, her eyes sparkling. As she smiled, "Hi Jake, I'm Emily, nice to meet you." We struck up a conversation, and I found myself laughing and sharing stories as if the weight of my past didn't exist. Emily was easy to talk to, and the chemistry between us felt genuine. It was refreshing, and I felt a sense of liberation in allowing myself to connect with someone new. As the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point for me. I was moving forward, leaving the heartache behind. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I continued to see each other. We went on hikes, explored new coffee shops, and shared countless laughs. Each moment felt like a small victory, a reminder that I was capable of feeling joy again. I was learning to enjoy life without the weight of my past dragging me down. But as I was beginning to heal, Laura resurfaced. One afternoon, I received a message from her. "Can we talk? I really need to see you." My heart raced at the sight of her name on my phone. I felt a mix of anger and anxiety flood back into my veins. Hadn't we put this behind us? I thought long and hard before responding. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to pretend that I had already moved on completely. But another part of me was curious about what she wanted to say. After all, we had shared years of our lives together. I finally decided to reply, "What do you need to talk about?" She suggested we meet at a nearby park. I agreed, though my heart was pounding as I drove there. I felt a sense of dread, but also a spark of curiosity. What could she possibly want? When I arrived, Laura was already there, pacing nervously. The moment she saw me, her face changed. She looked both relieved and apprehensive. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice shaky. I could see that she had been crying. "What's this about, Laura?" I asked, staying guarded. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since we last spoke," she began, her eyes searching mine for understanding. "I realize now how much I hurt you. I've been going to therapy, trying to figure out what went wrong." I couldn't help but feel a flicker of anger at her admission. Why hadn't she done this when we were together? But I bit my tongue, not wanting to engage in another argument. "I just want you to know that I'm truly sorry," she continued. "I never meant to betray your trust, and I realize now that I took you for granted." I crossed my arms, feeling the familiar sting of betrayal. "And what do you expect me to do with that now? It's too late, Laura, you made your choice." I know," she pleaded, urgency lacing her words. "But I've changed. I want to make amends. I've been a complete mess without you. I miss you, Jake." The vulnerability in her eyes tugged at my heart. Part of me wanted to hear her out to explore the possibility of closure, but another part of me knew that I had to protect my heart. You can't just erase what happened, I said quietly. Trust is not something that can be rebuilt overnight. I understand that, she replied, her voice soft, but I'm willing to work for it. I just want a chance to show you I can be better. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I'm not sure I can do that, Laura. I'm moving forward with my life. I'm seeing someone else now. The words hung heavy in the air, and I could see the realization wash over her. She looked devastated, but I also saw a flicker of acceptance. I just wanted to tell you the truth, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry for what I did. I hope you find happiness, Jake. As I walked away from that park, I felt a sense of relief. I had confronted the past and had chosen to move on. Laura's feelings were valid, but I couldn't let them overshadow my own healing journey. I returned to my life with Emily, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. While the scars of betrayal would always remain, I was determined to focus on the present and the future. I was ready to embrace new beginnings, to see where this path would take me. Things weren't perfect, but I had learned that it was okay to take things one day at a time. I had faced down my demons, and while the journey was still ongoing, I was ready to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. Life was about experiences, and I was ready to create new memories, this time, ones filled with trust, honesty, and love. As days turned into weeks, my life began to settle into a new rhythm. I was finally learning to embrace the changes that had swept through my life. Emily and I continued to see each other, and every moment we spent together felt like a breath of fresh air after the suffocating experience with Laura. Emily was kind, supportive, and genuinely interested in me as a person. Our conversations flowed easily, and I found myself laughing again, something I had thought was lost forever after the betrayal. We would spend lazy weekends exploring new hiking trails, trying out new restaurants, and even attending local events. I began to see the world through different eyes, appreciating the little things that had once been overshadowed by heartache. One evening, while sitting on a bench overlooking a stunning sunset, I turned to Emily and said, I never thought I'd feel this way again. After everything that happened, I was convinced I'd never be able to trust someone like this again. She smiled softly, her eyes reflecting the fading light. I'm glad you're giving yourself a chance to heal and to love again. You deserve happiness, Jake. Those words resonated with me deeply. I had spent so long feeling angry and broken, but now I was beginning to see that life could still hold beautiful moments, even after the worst experiences. As I started to open up to Emily, I shared more about my past, about Laura, and what I had gone through. I felt safe with her, and I appreciated how she listened without judgment. I was grateful for her understanding and encouragement, and it helped solidify the bond we were forming. One night, as we lay side by side on a blanket under the stars, I turned to her and said, It's still hard for me sometimes. There are moments when I think about what happened, and I feel the anger come back. But then I remind myself how far I've come. Emily nodded, her expression serious. It's okay to feel that way. Healing takes time and it's a process, but I'm here for you no matter what. Her reassurance gave me strength. We continued to build our relationship, and I found myself looking forward to the future rather than dwelling on the past. Though Laura had left her mark on my heart, I realized that I was no longer defined by her betrayal. I had grown stronger, wiser, and more aware of what I truly wanted in a relationship. I began to understand the importance of communication, trust, and honesty, lessons that I would carry with me into my future. One evening, as Emily and I stood in front of a small art gallery, I turned to her, feeling a surge of affection. I think I'm ready to take the next step with you. If you're open to it, I'd like to see where this goes. I really like you, Emily. Her eyes lit up and a broad smile spread across her face. I'd love that, Jake. I really like you too, and I think we could have something special. With that, we ventured into the gallery together, hand in hand, excited about the new journey we were embarking on. As I walked through life with Emily, I often reflected on the lessons I had learned from my experience with Laura. I had learned that it was essential to communicate openly, that love should never be taken for granted, and that trusting again is possible, even after heartbreak. I also learned that closure doesn't always mean forgetting. It means accepting the past, acknowledging the hurt, and understanding that it's part of my story. It shaped who I am today, a stronger, more resilient person who is willing to embrace the future. Looking back, I realized that betrayal had been a catalyst for my growth. It pushed me to reevaluate my priorities, my worth, and my capacity to love again. And as I stood beside Emily, I felt hopeful and content, ready to face whatever life had in store for us. In the end, I learned that while heartbreak can feel like the end, it often is just the beginning of something new, a chance to rebuild, to grow, and to find happiness again. I was no longer a victim of betrayal. I was a survivor, and I was ready to embrace the love that was waiting for me.